Good morning, friends. Welcome to California. I'm heading towards the White Mountains to a really high elevation to seek out some of the oldest trees in the world. That is absolutely correct. You're going to see that today. Trees that are thousands of years old, and I can't wait. Okay, so we are on White Mountain Road, and we have about 19 miles left to go, but it's about a 40-minute drive. I just assume because it's a windy mountain road, and we're probably going to be heading way up there any minute. I think I've heard the elevation we're going to be at is somewhere around 10,000 feet. I was watching some other YouTuber videos about this place, and I'm not sure, but I can tell you right now my ears are popping, so something's going on. I have had some issues with elevation in the past. Got really sick hiking Mount Humphrey in Flagstaff a few years ago and threw up, and it wasn't any fun. This today is not going to be as physically demanding as that, but if we are at a high elevation, I'm really curious to see if I'm going to have any issues. I'm going to predict not, but you never know. A little nervous, but I probably shouldn't be. I've also been hanging out the last few days at really high elevations, like 8,000 feet for the most part, so hopefully that got me somewhat acclimated. I'm not sure. All right, looks like we're starting to see things, plants that look like higher elevation plants, maybe juniper, pine trees over here, and really don't know my high elevation piney plants that well. I do not see any of the pine trees we've come to see yet because I think they're extremely rare, and the groves only exist in the super high elevation. There is a stop ahead. What is this about? Is there a fee? I do have a national parks pass, and I think this is federal, so we're probably okay. Nobody here at the thing, and oh yeah, sweet. America the Beautiful passes are accepted. I have paid for that thing maybe 50 times over by now. I can't recommend it enough. If you plan on visiting a couple parks in a year, it's probably worth it. I want to say that Yosemite was like $70 to get in for a carload, and I think the passes are still $80. So do the math. I mean, it's worth it, especially if you live out somewhere where there's lots of national parks like I do. We just passed a sign that indicated we're at 9,000 feet, and we're still going up, and I can see where we're heading, I think, now. So being at 10,000 feet, I think, is probably correct. So this sign says this is the Sierra View Vista Point. I'm gonna check that. Oh my God, look at that. Wow, let's take a quick break and go explore this. Take a couple pictures. That is absolutely mind-blowingly fantastic. Look at that amazing landscape. California. I need to move here. I want to say that's Bishop, California, right down there. That green patch, which is where I stayed last night. And that road, I wonder if that's 395. That would head up towards like Yosemite, Lee Vining, Mono Lake, somewhere off that a ways. And once again, see the snow up on those peaks? Those white patches? I'm assuming that's snow. In the road we came up from that direction. Somewhere down there, we winded through those hills up to where I find myself now. All right, it's official. I'm about to cross the barrier into the ancient Bristlecone pine forest. I always like stopping and getting pictures with signs. It proves that I was here. I could be wrong, but do I spy a bristlecone pine? They look very craggly and twisty like that. We're gonna go up though, and we'll get plenty of education on this today, but even if that's not a bristlecone, that's kind of what they look like. There are two trails here, the Methuselah Walk and the Discovery Trail. Discovery Trail is only about a mile long, and this one here is about 4 miles long. I think this is the more popular trail. I don't have time today to explore it, and trust me, there's nothing wrong with this trail from what I've seen. We're gonna see some amazing trees. It's absolutely beautiful up here. There are a couple different types of pine that live up here, and we'll see if we can distinguish the two. One is the bristlecone pine, and I think the other one was called a limber pine. And there's a way to identify those, and we'll try. But regardless, you gotta have respect, man, because these trees have been kicking much longer than we have. Well, not the human race, actually, I meant you and me. And here's the trail. Not paved, certainly not accessible. But I think there are going to be a lot of educational signs along the way. We might be getting our first looks at some of these things here. Let's see. This sign talks about how they identify the age of the trees using rings. And this fallen bristlecone here is 3,200 years old. 3,200 years old. And it died in the year 1626. Let that sink in for a minute. Isn't that approximately the time of Shakespeare when this thing would have died? And 3,000 years ago, you're talking before the Roman civilization, before Christ. These things were living up here. And don't worry, we're gonna see older ones than this. So right here we have a bristlecone pine cone. According to the signs I read, do you see these little bristles? This one doesn't have too many. You can kind of see some here. That is where the tree got its name, bristlecone, because of the bristles on it. They're a little prickly, but they don't hurt. It's not like thorns or anything. And the visitor center did invite you to pick these up, but they also said, please leave them where you found them. So we will follow the directions here. So hopefully by now you're catching on to what makes this place so special. When can you see wood older than Roman civilization? Maybe even as old as ancient Egyptian culture. I'm not sure how many thousands of years ago that one is, though I should be careful what I say, because I could be wrong. What I did read, though, some of these 3,000-year-old trees existed during the time of the Iron Age. The Iron Age in the British Isles, for example. It's just really amazing to think that. That's what makes it special to me, is trying to draw lines to what was happening in the world at that time. I'm pretty confident to say the elevation is starting to work its magic on me. A lot more short of breath than I normally would be. I'll be fine. I'm just gonna take it slow here and just enjoy the views and the trees. But yeah, the elevation it's something. There's a sign here that talks about the roots of the trees. So I'm gonna assume this is a bristlecone. Basically what the sign is saying is that the soil up here erodes at a rate of about a foot every 1,000 years. So as we make our way up, we're gonna notice a lot of the roots are exposed. And apparently that's, some theorize that could actually expose the plant to things that could kill it. Because I assume the roots are a little bit more sensitive than the rest of the tree. When they talk about root exposure, here's a pretty good example of that. Look how twisted and gnarled these pines are. Wow. The sign here in front of me does use this as an example of the exposed root system. It indicates that there's about 3 feet of soil that is eroded underneath this. However, it compensates for it on the other side, the uphill side, to prevent it from toppling over. But once the root systems are exposed, the plants are at risk of disease and just toppling over, as many of them seem to have done around here. These things look like a spooky Halloween tree to me. They're just all those really like craggly, twisted limbs. It looks like it should have like a evil face on it. Okay, so right behind me are trees that were first dated to be over 4,000 years old. Not sure if all of them are 4,000 years old or more, but among them are trees that are over 4,000 years old. The sign doesn't say specifically which ones, and I know the older trees, I don't think they tell you which ones are which, because I don't think they want people to mess with them maybe. But imagine that. We're looking at something probably here in front of us over 4,000 years old. 4,000 years old. I wonder if that's the 4,000 plus year old tree. Like I said, it looks smaller, and the less robust the tree, the older it is. That could be it. So how the heck do these things get to be that old? Well, the visitor center down there, the signs teach you that these things have really hard bark with resin inside. They're very disease resistant to the elements. They don't have much to compete with up here, and they've learned how to adapt in this otherwise very harsh climate. So basically, long story short, it's just resiliency, slow growth, and lots of time. Man, 4,000 plus years old. I seem to have entered a thicker grove of these things as I head up here. Of course, I'm facing into the sun now. They're everywhere up here. Surrounded by them. This is awesome. Here's a really nice close-up of a root system. Very exposed on the downward slope, because of course dirt tends to fall down with gravity. But you could see on the upward side, no exposure. So gravity is helping keep this thing standing here. The trail summit, it's 100 yards. And then I guess I get to go downhill, which is nice. It would appear the closer to the summit, the more bristlecone pine trees, which will make sense based on what I was reading. Okay, we're now crossing over this exposed section here. I guess we're going back down now. I was a little worried we were done when we went past that little summit area, but looks like there's some fantastic specimens here straight ahead. Really big, really craggly. There, down below, I believe, is the most photographed tree here in the ancient bristlecone pine forest, and you can just tell by its shape, that's an amazing tree. By the way, I got that information by watching one of my favorite channels, California Through My Lens, so I'll give credit to him. He's the one that mentioned that. Watched his video before I came out here. So I have a question for my friends, my mystical friends in Sedona that claim twisted juniper limbs are a sign of vortexes. Well, these limbs are pretty dang twisted. It's not a juniper tree. So my question for you is, how do you explain that? Is there a vortex here? Ooh, I just felt a tingle. I think there is. I believe the actual scientific answer is these things are exposed to high winds. And think about this, for thousands of years. And all of this weathering causes the limbs to get gnarled and twisted like that. And hence, that's where my annoyance lies with such claims. Unless they claim this is a vortex too, then I guess it's true. But you know, if you haven't seen my video when I was in Sedona talking about this stuff and you want to check it out, you're going to get the skeptic's perspective on it. But I made a video on Bell Rock, hiked the top of it, tried different experiments and stuff, and did not find any evidence of something called a vortex. Although I did feel surprisingly calm. I still think Twisted Juniper is the better name for a band. Twisted Bristlecone is not bad. I'd say it's a close second. But Twisted Juniper, I think, is where it's at. I'm gonna take a guess and say that's a baby bristlecone pine. After all, why would they put red flags around it? So you can see a youngin and what that looks like. Hi, little bristlecone pine. Is this your mother? This is a very photogenic tree. I love those limbs. That, to me, would be awesome in my front yard on Halloween. But that ain't gonna happen. Wow, that was a highlight. Those are beautiful. And yeah, I could see why that tree would be the most popular one to photograph. And it's really cool because you get to start above it, you come down below it, and you can get it from all sorts of different angles. So that was very pleasing. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is not the only trail. This is the shortest trail, and it has lots of cool, iconic things to see. Very worthwhile doing, but there are other groves in the area. There's a grove called the Patriarch Grove. I don't know if you can see the dirt road down below me. You might not be able to. I think that's a road that goes to the Patriarch Grove. I hear it's passable for two-wheel drive, depending on the time of year. You might want to check that out yourself, though. It's based on some quick internet research. There's also the Methuselah Trail that I showed you at the trailhead. That's 4.2 miles. We did not do that one today, and that's the more popular one that I hear people like to do. But yeah, this was fantastic. You can't go wrong with this Discovery Trail. And certainly as a first-timer here, the Discovery Trail was really good. I learned a lot about these trees that I didn't know. So if you're coming here for the first time, this may be a good first one to do. We survived the ancient bristlecone pine forest, and it was amazing. It blew my mind. Lining up events in human history, thinking of when these trees formed, it just blows my mind. Now granted, if that doesn't blow your mind, just the concept of that, maybe this isn't for you, but this was very impressive, and we left much unexplored, leaving us a reason to come back in the future, which I cannot wait to do.